I honestly thought I'd never see her ex again after their last huge fight. She always told me she couldn't stand him, that they constantly argued, and that he was out of her life for good. So when I showed up to our wedding and saw him there as a secretly invited guest, my stomach dropped. My name is Nate Ford, and I'm 39 years old. I work as a software architect for a tech startup downtown, making decent money but nothing flashy. I'm the kind of guy who fixes problems quietly, who notices details others miss, and who always thought loyalty mattered more than looks or money. Apparently, I was wrong about that last part. Miranda Ford, well, she kept her maiden name Hartwell for professional reasons, is 34 and works as a PR executive for one of those high-end firms that specializes in crisis management. Ironic, considering she was about to create the biggest crisis of my life. She's gorgeous in that polished, Instagram-ready way that makes other women hate her and men forget their own names. I used to think I was lucky she chose me. The wedding was at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel downtown, one of those places with marble floors and crystal chandeliers that cost more for one night than most people make in a month. Miranda insisted on it, of course. "Image is everything in my business, Nate," she'd said when I suggested something smaller. "We need to make a statement." Well, she certainly made a statement. Eric Rico Carmichael walked into our reception like he owned the place. 6'2", built like he lived in the gym, which he did since he owned 3 of them across the city, and wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car payment. His dark hair was slicked back, his smile was too white, and his handshake was too firm when Miranda introduced us. "Rico, this is my husband Nate," she said, and I swear she emphasized husband like it was a temporary title. "Congratulations, man," Rico said, but his eyes were already back on Miranda. "You look absolutely stunning, Mir. That dress is incredible on you." My wife never mentioned it, but I tried to stay calm and tell myself maybe they made peace. Maybe it was harmless. It wasn't. The first dance should have been ours. Instead, Miranda barely made it through half the song with me before she was scanning the crowd. "I should mingle," she whispered in my ear. "You understand." What I understood was that she spent the next 3 hours dancing with everyone except her husband. But mostly, she danced with Rico. I watched from our head table, nursing a whiskey and trying to smile when guests congratulated me. My brother Leo, an ex-cop with a smart mouth and a good heart, sat down next to me around 10 o'clock. "You okay, Nate? You look like someone stole your lunch money." "Just tired," I lied, watching Miranda throw her head back and laugh at something Rico whispered in her ear. They were pressed close together, her hand on his chest, his arm around her waist. If I didn't know better, I'd think they were the married couple. "That's her ex, right?" Leo asked, following my gaze. "Yeah, Rico Carmichael. She said they couldn't stand each other." Leo snorted. "Brother, if that's what hate looks like, I need to start hating more women." All night they danced together, flirted like I didn't exist, kissed like it was normal, and kept disappearing for long stretches. The first time they vanished, I told myself they were just catching up. The second time, I started getting suspicious. By the third time, I was getting angry. Mrs. Patterson, Miranda's elderly aunt, leaned over during their 4th dance. "They make such a lovely couple, don't they? I always thought Miranda should have married him instead." "Instead of who?" I asked. She looked confused. "Oh, well, I just meant—" She trailed off, realizing what she'd said. I excused myself and headed to the men's room, where I overheard 2 of Miranda's work friends talking by the sinks. "I can't believe she actually went through with marrying Nate," one was saying. "Tasha told me Miranda never got over Rico. She's been texting him for months." "Think she'll go through with it?" "With what?" "You know, what she told Chloe she was planning." They saw me in the mirror and went silent. I pretended to wash my hands, but my mind was racing. What was Miranda planning? I found out soon enough. At 11:47 p.m., Miranda took the microphone from the DJ. Rico stood beside her, his arm around her waist, both of them glowing with champagne and something else I was starting to recognize as triumph. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please?" Miranda's voice carried across the reception hall. The music stopped. Conversations died. All eyes turned to my wife. And it all happened right in front of me. I watched, swallowing it down, pretending I was fine, until something inside me finally snapped. "I have an announcement to make," Miranda continued, her voice steady and clear. She looked directly at me, sitting at our head table, and smiled. Not a loving smile. A victorious one. I walked up to them and demanded to know why they were doing this in my face, on our wedding day, in front of everyone. "Miranda, what the hell is going on?" I said into the microphone, my voice carrying across the silent room. My wife didn't even look guilty. She just shrugged and said, "Oh, I didn't tell you? I'm leaving you for him. I was wrong to leave Rico, and I want him back. I don't want a relationship with you anymore. I want one with him." The room erupted. Gasps, shocked whispers, a few people standing up from their tables. Someone's wine glass hit the floor and shattered. In that moment, I realized I wasn't the groom at my own wedding. I was the third wheel. But you know what? I've spent my whole career solving problems, and I'd just identified the biggest problem of my life: time to get to work. So I turned to our guests and decided they deserved to know the truth about what kind of bride they were celebrating, because she had just dumped me at our wedding to run back to her ex. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, taking the microphone from Miranda's suddenly nervous hands, "I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate what I thought was the beginning of my marriage. Turns out, you're actually here for the end of it." The room was dead silent now. "You see, my ex-wife, has just informed me that she's been planning this little surprise for months. All those late nights at work, all those girls' trips, all those times she said she was too tired to talk, she was actually planning how to humiliate me in front of everyone I care about." Miranda tried to grab the microphone. "Nate, stop." "No, Miranda. You wanted to make an announcement. Let's make sure everyone gets the full story." I looked out at the crowd, seeing faces I recognized. Friends, family, co-workers, people who'd given us gifts, who'd taken time out of their lives to celebrate what they thought was love. Rico here owns 3 gyms in the city. Successful guy. Rich guy. Better looking than me, obviously. And apparently, he's been sleeping with my wife for the past 6 months. Rico stepped forward. "Hey man, you need to calm down." "I need to calm down?" I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. "I just found out my wife has been cheating on me, and she chose our wedding day to dump me for her ex. But sure, I should calm down." I turned back to the crowd. "The funny thing is, Miranda told me she hated Rico, said he was controlling, said he was bad for her, said she never wanted to see him again. But I guess when you're planning to leave your husband, you need to keep your stories straight. Nate, please." Miranda's voice was smaller now, less confident. "Please what? Please don't tell everyone the truth. Please don't mention that you've been lying to me for months. Please don't point out that you invited your lover to our wedding without telling me." I looked at Rico, who was starting to look less smug and more uncomfortable. "And you, buddy? What kind of man shows up to another man's wedding to steal his bride? What kind of man helps a woman cheat on her husband and then stands there smiling while she humiliates him?" Rico's jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? Then why don't you explain it to everyone? Explain how this is all innocent. Explain how you just happened to be here, just happened to dance with my wife all night, just happened to disappear with her multiple times." The room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning humming. "You know what the worst part is?" I continued. "It's not that she cheated. It's not even that she left me. It's that she was so arrogant, so sure of herself, that she thought she could humiliate me in front of everyone, and I'd just take it." I handed the microphone back to the DJ and looked at Miranda one last time. "The bride is yours, Rico. Good luck. You'll need it. Because if she'll do this to me, she'll do it to you too. And with that, I walked out of my own wedding reception. The video went viral within hours. I woke up the next morning in Leo's guest room hungover and miserable to find my phone buzzing with notifications, missed calls, text messages, friend requests from strangers, and links to social media posts I didn't want to see. "Dude, you need to look at this," Leo said, bringing me coffee and his laptop. "You're famous." Someone had recorded the whole thing. The video was titled, "Groom Exposes Cheating Bride at Their Own Wedding," and had already been viewed over 2 million times. The comments were brutal. "Holy shit, the balls on this guy. Miranda is trash. Nate deserves better. Rico looks like a steroid-pumped Ken doll. This is why I'm never getting married." But not all the attention was positive. Miranda's friends were fighting back, spinning their own version of events on social media. Tasha Morrison, Miranda's maid of honor and closest friend, had posted a long Instagram story painting me as controlling and emotionally abusive. "Miranda finally found the courage to leave a toxic relationship," she wrote. "Sometimes love means having the strength to admit you made a mistake." Chloe Stevens, another member of Miranda's inner circle, and the one they called the Fixer, because of her talent for managing crises, had gone on Facebook with her own version. What you didn't see in that video was months of Nate's psychological manipulation. Miranda was scared to leave him until Rico helped her find her strength. "They're trying to control the narrative," Leo observed, scrolling through the posts. "Make you the bad guy, her the victim." "Let them try," I said, but my stomach was churning. I knew how these things worked. The first story people heard was usually the one they believed. My phone rang. Jenny Walsh, my assistant at work, and probably the most competent person I'd ever met. She had short red hair, wore glasses, and had a talent for anticipating problems before they became disasters. She also had an uncanny ability to know a guy for any situation. "Nate, I just saw the video. Are you okay?" "I've been better. I'm probably going to need a few days off." "Already handled. I told them you had a family emergency, but we need to talk. Miranda's people are already trying to do damage control, and it's not just social media. I have a friend who works at her PR firm. They're planning something." "What kind of something?" "The kind that involves lawyers and accusations and trying to make you look like the villain. Can you meet me for lunch? I think I know someone who can help." 2 hours later, I was sitting in a downtown diner with Jenny and a woman named Patricia Kim, a lawyer who specialized in what she called reputation defense. "The good news," Patricia said, spreading photos and documents across the table, "is that everything you said at the wedding was true. I've already had my investigator pull some preliminary information. Rico Carmichael, 36, owns Carmichael Fitness, with locations in Midtown, Downtown, and West Side. Married to Stephanie Carmichael, 2 kids. That's going to be a problem for him." "He's married?" I stared at her. "Very married. Wife's a pediatric nurse. Been together 8 years. She has no idea about Miranda." Jenny grinned. "Oh, this is going to be good." "The bad news," Patricia continued, "is that Miranda's firm is very good at what they do. They're already planting stories, building a case that you were psychologically abusive, that she was afraid to leave you, that Rico was just helping a friend escape a bad situation." "But that's all lies." "Of course it is. But lies told well can be more powerful than truth told poorly. We need to get ahead of this." She slid a tablet across the table showing Miranda's Instagram account. New posts were going up every few hours. Photos of bruises that could have been from anything, accompanied by captions about finally finding the courage to speak my truth. Screenshots of text messages that looked like threats, but were actually taken out of context from conversations about surprise birthday parties and vacation planning. "She's building a case," Patricia explained, "making herself look like a victim who finally escaped. It's actually pretty sophisticated." "So what do we do?" Patricia smiled. "We tell the real story, and we have something they don't." What's that? The truth, and more importantly, evidence. She pulled out a thick folder. Jenny's friend at the PR firm was very helpful. Apparently, Miranda's been bragging about her plan for weeks, how she was going to trade up from you to Rico, how she was going to time the announcement for maximum impact, how she thought it would be empowering to take control of her own narrative. She said all that? She said all that and more, to multiple people, who kept records. Patricia's smile got wider. Never trust people in PR to keep secrets, Nate. They're all secretly documenting everything for their own protection. Jenny leaned forward. There's more. I know a guy who works at the hotel. He pulled the security footage from last night. Miranda and Rico weren't just dancing. They were making out in the coat check room, in the elevator, in the hallway outside the bathroom, all while you were sitting at the head table. And, Patricia added, I have a friend who works at Rico's gym. Apparently he's been telling everyone for months about his side piece who was going to leave her boring husband for him. He even showed people photos of Miranda in her wedding dress, bragging about how he was going to steal the bride. I felt something cold and hard settling in my chest. Not sadness anymore. Not hurt. Something else entirely. They planned this, I said slowly. They actually planned to humiliate me in front of everyone I care about. Oh, it gets better, Jenny said. Miranda's been telling people at work that she was going to take you for everything in the divorce. Half your savings, half your stock options, alimony. She was bragging about how she was going to destroy you financially while she ran off with Rico. Patricia nodded. The problem is, she's actually in a pretty good position to do exactly that. You've been married 3 years, she makes less money than you do, and if she can sell the abuse story, she could take everything, I finished. She could take everything, Patricia confirmed. I sat back in the booth, processing this information. Miranda hadn't just cheated on me. She hadn't just left me. She had orchestrated an elaborate plan to humiliate me publicly and then destroy me financially. She had turned our wedding into a stage for her own twisted performance. So what are my options? Patricia and Jenny exchanged a look. Well, Patricia said slowly, we could play defense, try to minimize the damage, protect your assets, hope the story dies down. Or, I asked. Jenny grinned. Or we could play offense. What does that mean? Patricia leaned forward. It means we stop reacting to their moves and start making our own. It means we stop letting them control the narrative and start telling the real story. It means we stop playing victim and start playing to win. I'm listening. Miranda thinks she's smart. She thinks she's planned for everything, but she made one crucial mistake. Which is? Patricia's smile was sharp as a blade. She underestimated you. The first shot was fired at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. I was back at work, trying to pretend everything was normal, when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Jenny had worked her magic over the weekend. Check Instagram, she said, appearing at my desk with coffee and a satisfied smile. Stephanie Carmichael, Rico's wife, had posted a series of photos. Rico with another woman at various restaurants and hotels around the city. Rico's credit card statements showing charges at jewelry stores and expensive hotels. And finally, a screenshot of text messages between Rico and Miranda, including several that were extremely explicit about what they planned to do after getting rid of the husband. The caption was simple. Sometimes you don't know who you married. Filing for divorce today. #cheater, #liar, #karma. How did you... I started. I know a guy who knows a guy, Jenny said. Stephanie deserved to know the truth, and now she's telling it. Within hours, the story had shifted. Rico wasn't the hero helping a woman escape an abusive marriage anymore. He was a cheating husband who had destroyed 2 marriages for his own selfish desires. But Miranda's team wasn't going down without a fight. By noon, Chloe Stevens had posted a response claiming that Stephanie was lying, that the text messages were fake, that Rico was actually separated from his wife and had been for months. She provided evidence in the form of apartment rental agreements and witness statements from people claiming Rico had been living alone. "She's good," Patricia admitted when I called her. "Chloe Stevens has a reputation for being able to spin anything. She once convinced the media that a CEO caught embezzling money was actually conducting an undercover investigation into corporate fraud." So what now? Now we escalate. That evening, I found myself parked outside Rico's flagship gym in Midtown. Leo sat in the passenger seat, eating takeout Chinese food and providing commentary. "This feels very stalkerish, brother. You sure about this?" "I'm not stalking. I'm conducting reconnaissance." That's what all stalkers say. Rico's Porsche 911 was parked in the VIP spot right in front of the gym, gleaming under the streetlights. It was red, of course. Everything about Rico was designed to scream, "Look at me." "There he is," Leo said as Rico emerged from the gym. Even at 8 p.m., he looked like he was posing for a fitness magazine cover. Tank top showing off his arms, shorts showing off his legs, protein shake in one hand and gym bag in the other. He was talking on his phone, and his voice carried across the parking lot. "Doesn't matter what Stephanie says. Chloe's handling it. Yeah, Miranda's worried, but I told her we stick to the plan. By the time we're done, Nate won't have a pot to piss in." I started recording on my phone. "Abuse angle is working great. People are starting to turn on him. No, he won't fight back. Guy's a total pushover. Always has been." Rico got in his car and drove away, completely unaware that he'd just provided me with everything I needed. The video went live on social media at 10 p.m. By midnight, it had been shared over 50,000 times. By morning, Rico's gym was surrounded by protesters. "Homewrecker," read one sign. "Rico the liar," read another. Someone had spray-painted "cheater" across the front windows of the gym. But the real damage was happening online. Reviews for Rico's gyms were plummeting as people canceled memberships and left scathing comments. His business partners were distancing themselves. Sponsors were pulling out of his fitness competitions. Miranda tried to do damage control with a Facebook Live video, claiming that Rico's words had been taken out of context, that he was just trying to protect her from my continued harassment. But the comments section told a different story. "Girl, just stop. We all saw the wedding video. You cheated on your husband at your own wedding. Nothing you say matters now. Rico's married with kids. You're a homewrecker. This is what karma looks like." Wednesday morning, I got a call from Patricia. "We have a problem," she said. "Miranda's escalating. She's filed a restraining order against you, claiming harassment and stalking. She's also filed a police report claiming you've been threatening her." "That's insane. I haven't even talked to her since the wedding." "I know, but she has evidence. Screenshots of threatening messages supposedly from your phone number, witness statements from her friends claiming you've been following her, photos of your car allegedly parked outside her apartment. All fake? All fake. But convincing. She's playing for keeps now, Nate. If this restraining order goes through, it supports her abuse narrative. And if the police believe her harassment claims, I could be arrested. You could be arrested." I sat in my office, staring out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Miranda and Rico were probably congratulating themselves on their brilliant strategy. They thought they had me cornered. They were wrong. "Patricia," I said, "I need you to set up a meeting." "With who?" "Everyone. Miranda's friends, Rico's business partners, anyone who's been helping them spread lies. It's time for a little truth-telling session." "Nate, I don't think that's a good idea. If you violate the restraining order, I'm not going to violate anything, but I am going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they've been supporting." That afternoon, Jenny walked into my office with a thick folder and a grim smile. "Remember how I said I know a guy who knows a guy?" "Yeah. Well, my guy just delivered something very interesting." She opened the folder and spread out dozens of photos, documents, and printed emails. "Turns out, Miranda and Rico have been planning this for a lot longer than 6 months. I picked up one of the photos. It showed Miranda and Rico together at a restaurant, clearly on a date. The timestamp showed it was from 8 months ago, just 2 weeks after Miranda and I got engaged. She was cheating before we even started planning the wedding? Gets better. Look at this. Jenny handed me a printout of an email chain between Miranda and Chloe. The subject line was Operation Upgrade. I read in disbelief as Miranda laid out her entire plan, how she was going to string me along through the wedding to avoid looking like a runaway bride, how she was going to build a case for abuse to maximize her divorce settlement, how she was going to time the revelation for maximum humiliation and media attention to boost her own profile in the PR world. She was using our marriage as a publicity stunt, I said slowly, and a cash grab. Look at the financial documents. Jenny showed me bank statements, credit reports, and asset valuations. Miranda had been systematically documenting everything we owned, everything I earned, every investment I'd made. She had even taken photos of family heirlooms and expensive items in our apartment. She was cataloging everything she planned to take, Jenny explained. And according to this email, she was planning to claim you gave her everything willingly because you felt guilty about being abusive. I felt that cold, hard feeling in my chest growing stronger. There's more, Jenny said quietly. She was never planning to stay with Rico either. What? Look at this email to her friend Sarah in Los Angeles. Jenny handed me another printout. She calls Rico her stepping stone. Says she's going to use him to get away from you, then dump him once she's established in her new life. She even jokes about taking half his gym business in their eventual breakup. I stared at the email, reading Miranda's words over and over again. She was planning to destroy both of us, I said. She was planning to destroy both of you, Jenny confirmed. I looked up at my assistant, this woman who had somehow become my most trusted ally in the span of a week. Jenny, how did you get all this? She grinned. I told you I know a guy. Turns out Miranda's been backing up all her emails to a cloud service that she forgot she gave you access to when you were setting up her new laptop last year. So this is all legal? Completely legal. You had authorized access to the account. She just forgot about it. I sat back in my chair, processing everything I'd learned. Miranda hadn't just betrayed me. She had orchestrated an elaborate con game designed to destroy my life for her own profit and entertainment. She had turned our entire relationship into a lie, our wedding into a performance, and our divorce into a heist. But she had made one crucial mistake. She had underestimated me, and now I had everything I needed to show the world exactly who Miranda Hartwell really was. Jenny, I said, I think it's time for Operation Exposure. What's Operation Exposure? I smiled, and for the first time since the wedding, it felt genuine. It's what happens when the underdog stops playing defense and starts playing to win. The charity gala was Miranda's idea of the perfect comeback venue. It was the annual fundraiser for the Children's Hospital, held at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, the same place where she'd humiliated me just 2 weeks earlier. Miranda had bought a table, invited all her friends, and planned to use the event to rehabilitate her image as a victim who was bravely moving forward with her life. She had no idea I'd be there too. Are you sure about this? Leo asked as we walked through the hotel lobby. He was wearing his best suit and looking uncomfortable. This feels like walking into a trap. It's not a trap if you're the one setting it, I replied. Jenny met us at the entrance to the ballroom, looking elegant in a black dress and carrying a tablet loaded with everything we needed. Status report, I said. Chloe Stevens is at table 12 with Miranda's work friends. Rico's at table 8 with some of his business partners. Apparently Stephanie took the kids and moved in with her sister, so he's trying to salvage his reputation. Miranda's at the head table with the hospital board members. And our surprise guests? Jenny smiled. Table 15. They're very excited to meet Miranda. I looked across the ballroom and spotted them immediately. 3 women I'd never met, but who had become very important to this evening's entertainment. Sarah Chen from Los Angeles, Miranda's friend who had received those incriminating emails, Jessica Torres, a former client of Miranda's PR firm who had some very interesting stories to tell, and Maria Santos, a former employee of Rico's gym who had been fired for refusing to lie about his whereabouts during his business trips with Miranda. All three had been very eager to attend tonight's event once Jenny explained the situation. "Showtime," I said. The first act began during cocktail hour. I approached Chloe Stevens while she was talking to a group of potential donors, all of whom recognized me from the viral wedding video. "Chloe," I said pleasantly, "so good to see you again." She turned, and I watched her face cycle through surprise, annoyance, and calculation. "Nate, I'm surprised you're here." "Why wouldn't I be? It's for a good cause." I smiled at the donors. "Ladies, gentlemen, I don't think you've met Chloe Stevens. She's the one who's been helping my ex-wife spread all those interesting stories about me." One of the donors, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, looked between us with interest. "Oh, you're the groom from that video, the one where your wife left you for her ex-boyfriend." "That's me. And Chloe here has been working very hard to convince people that I deserved it." I pulled out my phone. "Would you like to hear what she really thinks about the situation?" Before Chloe could stop me, I played a recording that Jenny had obtained from one of Miranda's other friends. Chloe's voice came through clearly. "The whole abuse thing is total bullshit, but Miranda needs a story that makes her look sympathetic. Nate's actually a decent guy, but decent doesn't sell magazines." The donors stared at Chloe, whose face had gone pale. That's taken out of context," she stammered. "Is it?" I played another clip. "Because there's more." This time, it was Chloe laughing about how they were going to destroy that boring software nerd and take him for everything he was worth. "Excuse me," said the elderly donor, backing away from Chloe. "I think I need some air." The group dispersed, leaving Chloe standing alone with me. "You bastard," she hissed. "I'm just playing the game by your rules, Chloe. You wanted to control the narrative? Let's see how you like it when the narrative is actually true." Act 2 began during dinner. I had requested a few minutes to speak about the hospital's mission, which the organizers had granted since I'd made a substantial donation. What they didn't know was that my speech was going to be about more than just sick children. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, standing at the podium with the microphone in my hand. 2 weeks ago, I stood in this very hotel and learned something important about truth and lies. I could see Miranda at the head table, her face frozen in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Rico was at his table, looking like he wanted to run. I learned that sometimes people will lie to your face while smiling. They'll manipulate your emotions, exploit your trust, and then try to make you the villain when you call them out on it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. But I also learned that the truth has a way of coming out no matter how hard people try to bury it. I gestured to the screen behind me, where Jenny was preparing to display our evidence. For example, some of you may have heard that I was abusive to my ex-wife, that she left me because she was afraid of me, that Rico Carmichael was just helping a friend escape a dangerous situation. The first image appeared on the screen, Miranda's email to Sarah talking about Operation Upgrade. This is an email my ex-wife sent to her friend 8 months ago, describing her plan to use our marriage as a stepping stone to a better life. As you can see, there's no mention of abuse, just a cold, calculated plan to manipulate and deceive. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. I could see—
"You cheated on me! You betrayed me! You destroyed our family!"
Yes, I cheated! And you're the one to blame! You were never there for me! We're divorcing!
You get nothing! The house is mine! The money is mine! You'll live on the street! What?
Wanna know who I cheated with? Your boss! He's a real man!
You're finished! I'll make sure you get nothing! You hear me? Nothing!
I don't need your money. I'm leaving you for him. He's twice the man you are. And you know what else?
People at Miranda's table turning to stare at her. The next image was Rico's text messages, talking about taking me for everything I was worth. And here we have Rico Carmichael, the hero of this story, discussing how he's going to help destroy me financially while he's still married to his wife and lying to her about his whereabouts. More images followed, bank statements showing Miranda's systematic cataloging of our assets, photos of her and Rico together dating back almost a year, screenshots of conversations where they joked about my gullibility and planned exactly how they would humiliate me. The truth, I said, is that I wasn't the victim of domestic abuse. I was the victim of an elaborate con game designed to steal my money and destroy my reputation for the entertainment of two people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. The ballroom was dead silent now. But here's the thing about con games, I continued. They only work if the mark doesn't figure out what's happening, and once he does, I smiled. Well, let's just say the game changes. I nodded to Jenny, who had positioned herself near table 15. I'd like to introduce you to some people who have their own stories to tell about Miranda Hartwell and Rico Carmichael. Sarah Chen stood up first. I'm Sarah Chen from Los Angeles. Miranda has been my friend for 5 years, and I have hundreds of emails where she describes her plan to manipulate and deceive Nate Ford. She asked me to lie to support her abuse story. When I refused, she threatened to destroy my career. Jessica Torres was next. I'm Jessica Torres. Miranda's PR firm represented me last year when I was going through a difficult divorce. She convinced me to make false abuse allegations against my ex-husband, then used the media attention to promote her own business. When the lies fell apart, she abandoned me completely. Finally, Maria Santos stood up. I worked at Rico's gym for 2 years. He asked me to lie about his schedule to cover up his affair with Miranda. When I refused, he fired me and spread rumors that I was stealing from the register. I've been unemployed for 6 months because of those lies. The ballroom erupted. People were standing up, talking loudly, pointing at Miranda and Rico. I could see board members at the head table distancing themselves from Miranda, literally scooting their chairs away from her. The truth, I said into the microphone, is that Miranda Hartwell and Rico Carmichael are not victims or heroes. They're predators who destroy people's lives for their own profit and amusement, and they're very, very good at making their victims look like the bad guys. I looked directly at Miranda, who was sitting frozen at the head table. But not tonight. Act 3 was the finale. As the crowd buzzed with shock and anger, I walked over to Miranda's table. She looked up at me with pure hatred in her eyes. Hello, Miranda. You son of a bitch, she whispered. You've destroyed everything. No, I said quietly. You destroyed everything. I just made sure everyone could see it. Rico appeared beside her, his face red with anger. You think you're so smart, don't you? Smarter than you gave me credit for, apparently. This isn't over, Rico growled. You're right, I agreed. It's not. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table in front of them. What's this? Miranda asked. Your divorce papers. And Rico, yours are being served to you tomorrow morning. Turns out, Stephanie found a very good lawyer. Miranda opened the folder and her face went white. You can't. Those numbers represent exactly what you're entitled to under California law when you commit adultery and attempt to defraud your spouse, which is essentially nothing. I smiled. Oh, and Rico? That second set of papers is from your business partners. They're buying you out of the gym franchise. Apparently, they don't think a cheating liar is good for the brand. Rico lunged at me, but Leo appeared out of nowhere and caught him by the arm. Easy there, Muscles, Leo said. Lots of witnesses here. You really want to add assault to your list of problems? Security was already moving toward our table. The evening was over and everyone knew it. "This is what happens," I said to Miranda and Rico, "when you underestimate the boring software nerd." I turned and walked away, leaving them sitting at their table surrounded by staring, whispering strangers. As I reached the exit, Jenny caught up with me. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. 2 weeks ago, I had been humiliated in front of everyone I cared about. Tonight, I had returned the favor with interest. "I feel," I said, "like I'm just getting started." 3 days after the charity gala, Miranda made her last desperate play. I was working late at the office when building security called to tell me there was a situation in the parking garage. I found Miranda sitting on the hood of my car, wearing a short black dress and holding a bottle of wine. "Hello, Nate," she said, sliding off the car with practiced grace. "We need to talk." "No, we don't, and you're violating the restraining order you filed against me." She laughed. "I dropped the restraining order this morning, along with the police report. Chloe thought it was the best way to show good faith." "Good faith for what?" Miranda stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume mixed with wine. She was drunk, but not sloppy drunk. Calculated drunk. "I want to make a deal," she said. "What kind of deal?" "The kind where we both walk away from this mess with our dignity intact." She held up the wine bottle. "This is a 1996 Chateau Margaux. Cost me $1,200. I thought we could share it while we discuss terms." "Terms for what?" "Our mutual destruction pact." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Face it, Nate. You've hurt me. I've hurt you. We keep going like this. We're both going to end up with nothing." I leaned against my car, curious, despite myself. "I'm listening." "You drop the evidence you have about Operation Upgrade. Stop talking to reporters. Stop posting on social media. Stop turning my friends against me. In exchange, I'll publicly apologize for the wedding incident and split our assets 50-50 instead of trying to take you for everything." "And Rico?" "Rico is Rico's problem now. I'm done with him." She took a swig from the wine bottle. "Turns out you were right about him. He's already trying to pin everything on me, claiming I seduced him and manipulated him into helping me. Shocking. The point is, we can end this. Right here, right now. We both made mistakes." "No," I interrupted. "You made mistakes. I just got married." Miranda's facade cracked slightly. "Don't be self-righteous, Nate. You've enjoyed this. The revenge, the public humiliation, the feeling of power. You've enjoyed destroying me." She wasn't wrong. I had enjoyed it. More than I probably should have. "Maybe," I admitted. "But I didn't start this war." "No, but you can end it." She stepped closer again, close enough that I could see the desperation behind her carefully applied makeup. "We were good together once, Nate. Before everything got complicated. We could be good together again. Are you seriously trying to seduce me right now?" "I'm trying to save us both." She placed her hand on my chest. "Think about it. We go back to the media, tell them we worked things out, that we realized we both made mistakes. We have a quiet divorce, split everything fairly, and move on with our lives. And what about all the people you've hurt? Sarah, Jessica, Maria. What about Stephanie and her kids?" Miranda's expression hardened. "What about them? Life is messy, Nate. People get hurt. That's not my responsibility. It is when you're the one hurting them." "God, you're so naive." She stepped back, her seduction attempt abandoned. "You think you're the hero in this story? You think what you did at the gala was noble?" "I think it was honest. It was cruel. And it was public. And it was designed to humiliate me in front of everyone I work with." She took another drink from the wine bottle. "How is that different from what I did to you?" "Because what I said was true." "Truth doesn't matter, Nate. Perception matters. And right now, the perception is that you're a vindictive ex-husband who can't let go." She pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. Social media posts from people calling me obsessed, saying I'd gone too far, suggesting that maybe Miranda had been right about me being controlling. "The narrative is shifting," she said. "People are starting to feel sorry for me again. The poor woman who made one mistake and is being destroyed by her bitter ex-husband." I looked at the posts. She was right. Public opinion was fickle, and some people were starting to see me as the aggressor. "So here's what's going to happen," Miranda continued. "You're going to take my deal, or I'm going to destroy you the same way you destroyed me. I still have friends in this city, Nate. I still have connections. I can make your life very, very difficult." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." She smiled, and this time it was genuine. Cold and calculating, but genuine. "I've already started, actually. Did you know your company is up for a major contract with Hartwell Industries, my uncle's company?" I felt my stomach drop. Hartwell Industries was one of the biggest tech contractors in the city. Landing that contract would make my company's year. "I had lunch with Uncle Richard yesterday," Miranda continued. "Told him all about my abusive ex-husband and his vindictive campaign against me. He was very sympathetic." "You're bluffing." "Am I? Your boss should be getting a call tomorrow morning. Something about concerns over your stability and professionalism." She took another sip of wine. "But it doesn't have to happen. Take the deal, Nate. Walk away. We both move on." I stared at her, this woman I had once loved, and realized I was seeing her clearly for the first time. Not the beautiful, successful PR executive I had married. Not even the manipulative cheater who had humiliated me at our wedding. This was Miranda Hartwell in her purest form, a predator who would destroy anyone who threatened her, even if it meant burning down everything around her. "You know what, Miranda?" I said finally. "You're right about one thing. I have enjoyed this. I've enjoyed watching you scramble, watching your perfect facade crumble, watching people see you for who you really are." Her smile faltered. "But you made one crucial mistake in your threat just now." "What's that?" I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app I'd been running since she started talking. "You assumed I wasn't documenting this conversation." Her face went white. "Attempted blackmail, threats against my livelihood, admission that you're using family connections to damage my career." I shook my head. "Miranda, you just handed me everything I need to finish this." She lunged for my phone, but I stepped back easily. "You bastard!" she screamed. "You recorded me without permission." "Actually, this is a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of." I smiled. "You should know that, being in PR and all." Miranda stared at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." I walked around to the driver's side of my car. "Enjoy the wine, Miranda, you're going to need it." As I drove away, I could see her in my rearview mirror, standing alone in the parking garage, still holding the bottle of wine and screaming curses at my taillights. The next morning, I sent the recording to Patricia, Jenny, and Leo. By noon, it was in the hands of every major media outlet in the city. By evening, Miranda Hartwell's career was over. The story that broke wasn't just about a cheating wife or a wedding scandal. It was about a pattern of manipulation, blackmail, and abuse of power by someone who was supposed to be managing other people's reputations. Miranda's uncle, Richard Hartwell, issued a public statement distancing his company from his niece and expressing his shock and disappointment at her behavior, and I watched it play across my screen with the same quiet satisfaction you feel when a storm finally clears the air. The contract with my company went through as planned, signed and stamped without a single tremor, like the universe was reminding me that competence survives scandal and that truth has a way of making paperwork behave. The fallout spread fast after that, not in loud explosions, but in the steady, humiliating erosion of reputations that had been built on charm, connections, and the assumption that nobody would ever check the facts. Rico's gym franchise was sold to his former business partners for a fraction of its value, the kind of sale you make when the alternative is bankruptcy and a public auction. He moved to another state, reportedly working as a personal trainer at a small fitness center, which felt like the most fitting kind of exile, because a man who once strutted like he owned the world now counted reps for strangers who couldn't remember his name. Chloe Stevens was fired from her PR firm and blacklisted from the industry, which might have been the cruelest punishment of all for someone who had made a living shaping narratives, because the industry's biggest sin isn't being wrong, it's being radioactive. And Miranda? Miranda evaporated, disappearing from social media, from the PR world, from the city entirely, like she thought deleting herself could delete the consequences too. Some people said she moved back in with her parents in Ohio. Others claimed she was working at a small marketing firm in Phoenix under a different name, and I listened to the rumors the way you listen to distant sirens, acknowledging the sound without needing to chase it. I didn't really care where she went, as long as it was far away from me, because the only thing I wanted from Miranda at that point was distance, silence, and the assurance that she could never again walk into my life wearing innocence like a designer coat. I'd learned the hard way that some people don't apologize because they're sorry, they apologize because they want access again, and access was the one thing I was no longer willing to offer. 6 months later, I was sitting in my office when Jenny knocked on the door with a look on her face like she'd just seen a ghost walk through the lobby. Jenny was usually unshakable, the kind of assistant who could handle angry clients and broken printers with the same level tone, but this time her eyebrows were pinched and her hand hovered half an inch above the doorframe like she wasn't sure whether to step in. "You have a visitor," she said, her voice careful. "Who is it?" I asked, already assuming it was another client trying to renegotiate terms now that the scandal had cooled. "Stephanie Carmichael," she said, still puzzled. "Rico's ex-wife." For a moment, the name sat in the air like a dropped glass. I hadn't spoken to Stephanie since the night her divorce became public, since that first chaotic wave of consequences that followed Rico everywhere like a bad smell. I remembered her from the courthouse photos that circulated online. Tight jaw, tired eyes, shoulders held too straight, as if posture could keep her from collapsing. In every picture, she looked like someone who had swallowed a scream and decided to live anyway. "Send her in," I said, and my voice came out calmer than I felt. Stephanie walked into my office looking tired but determined, carrying a manila envelope as if it weighed more than paper. Her clothes were simple, professional, and slightly worn at the edges, like she'd been living on practicality for months. There was no makeup to soften her face, no jewelry to distract from the reality in her eyes, just the raw focus of someone who had decided that fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Mr. Ford," she said, shaking my hand. Her grip was firm, but not aggressive, and her palm was cold from the winter air outside. "Thank you for seeing me." "Of course," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "How are you doing?" She exhaled slowly as she sat down, like the simple act of answering that question required choosing between honesty and survival. "Better," she said, then paused, then corrected herself. "Different. Some days better. Some days just quieter." I nodded, because I understood that kind of quiet. The quiet that follows chaos when your body is still bracing for impact, but the blows have stopped. "What can I do for you?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral, not because I didn't care, but because I'd learned neutrality is what makes people feel safe enough to speak the truth. She placed the manila envelope on my desk, but didn't slide it toward me yet. Instead, she looked around my office, taking in the clean lines, the framed certificates, the orderly shelves, and her eyes lingered on the closed door like she needed to confirm we were alone. "I'm not here to talk about Rico," she said, even though his name had already set the context. "Not directly." "Okay," I said, and I waited. "I followed what happened," she continued, choosing each word carefully. "Not the gossip, the actual timeline, the contract, the statement from Hartwell, the sale of the franchise. I saw the way you handled it. I didn't respond, because praise can be a trap, and I'd stepped on enough traps to recognize the shape of one. She noticed my silence and gave a small, weary smile. You don't trust compliments anymore, she said. I trust patterns, I replied. Fair, she said, and her smile vanished. Then let me be direct. Rico didn't just ruin my marriage, he ruined my finances too. The words hit the room with a blunt weight. I leaned forward slightly. How? Stephanie's eyes flickered down to the envelope, and when she spoke again, her voice had that controlled tremor of someone trying not to fall apart in public. During the last year of our marriage, he opened lines of credit in my name. He told me it was for expanding the business, for building equity, for tax reasons. He was charming about it, persuasive, always telling me it would benefit us both. And it didn't, I said. It benefited him, she said, and now her anger came through, not loud, but sharp and clean. When everything exploded, I learned there were loans I didn't know about, leases I didn't sign knowingly, and accounts he used like they were disposable. She swallowed, and the tiredness in her face deepened. I spent months untangling it. The lawyers took what little I had left, and the worst part is that he's gone now, working in some small gym like he's starting fresh, while I'm still paying for the life he burned down. I glanced at the envelope again. What's inside? She finally pushed it toward me. Evidence, she said simply. Documents my attorney said I should keep, but he also said pursuing Rico would be expensive, that it might drag out for years. I can't afford years. I can't afford to keep paying for his lies. Her hands clenched together on her lap, fingers interlaced so tightly her knuckles whitened. But then I saw what happened to Miranda and Chloe, and I realized something. What? I asked. You didn't win by screaming, she said. You won by being prepared, by making it impossible for them to spin their way out. That landed harder than any compliment, because it wasn't flattery, it was observation. She was right. The only reason the truth had stuck was because it came with receipts, dates, signatures, and a trail no one could laugh away. I'm not asking you to fight my battles, she said quickly, as if she worried I'd shut her down. I'm asking you to tell me what's worth doing next, because you've been through it, and you know how these people operate. I studied her face, the exhaustion under the determination, the way she held herself, like someone bracing against a constant wind. She wasn't trying to revenge post or start a rumor campaign. She wasn't asking for chaos. She was asking for a roadmap out of the wreckage, and the difference mattered. You want strategy? I said. I want justice, she corrected softly, then added, or at least, an ending. I opened the envelope and began flipping through the documents. There were bank statements, loan disclosures, email printouts, copies of forms with signatures, and a timeline handwritten in the margin of a legal pad, neat and meticulous. This wasn't vague suspicion. This was structure. This was a case. As I read, something settled in my chest, familiar and heavy, like a door clicking shut, because I knew what this meant. It meant Rico's story wasn't over. It meant the consequences he'd dodged by running might still find him. And it meant Stephanie hadn't come here for sympathy. She'd come here because she'd decided to stop bleeding quietly. I looked up from the papers and met her eyes. You did the right thing bringing this, I said. Her shoulders loosened a fraction, like she'd been carrying that envelope not just in her hands, but in her lungs. So I'm not crazy, she said, and it sounded less like a question and more like a prayer. No, I said, and my voice was steady, because steadiness is a gift you can give someone who's been gaslit for too long. You're not crazy. You're finally seeing the whole picture. She blinked fast, fighting tears she refused to let fall, and she nodded once. Then tell me what you'd do, she said, if you were me. I set the papers down carefully, aligning the edges the way I always did when I wanted my thoughts to line up too. Then I leaned back in my chair and considered the question, not as a hypothetical, but as a promise forming in the air, because some conversations don't just ask for advice, they ask for alliance. And for the first time in 6 months, I realized the story wasn't ending with Miranda disappearing into the desert or Rico hiding in another state. It was shifting. It was turning into something quieter, sharper, and far more dangerous for the people who thought distance was the same thing as escape. Better. The kids and I are settled in our new place, the divorce is finalized, and I'm back to work full-time. She sat down across from my desk. I wanted to thank you. For what? For exposing the truth about Rico and Miranda. If you hadn't done what you did, I might never have found out about the affair. I could have spent years living a lie. She opened the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of documents. I also wanted to give you this. I looked at the papers. They were financial records, phone logs, and what looked like a private investigator's report. What is this? Everything my lawyer uncovered during the divorce proceedings. Rico was hiding a lot more than just his affair with Miranda. Stephanie's expression was grim. He was embezzling money from the gym franchise, using company funds for his personal expenses, and lying to his business partners about the financial situation. I flipped through the documents, my eyes widening as I saw the numbers. This is, I started. Over $200,000 in fraudulent activity, Stephanie finished. My lawyer turned it over to the district attorney's office yesterday. Rico's going to be facing criminal charges. And Miranda. She was involved too. Some of the money went to pay for their hotel rooms, their trips, even the jewelry he bought her. Stephanie leaned forward. She knew he was stealing, and she helped him spend the money. I sat back in my chair processing this information. Even after everything that had happened, Miranda had managed to surprise me with the depth of her corruption. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you deserve to know. And because... She hesitated. Because I wanted you to know that what you did wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. You stopped 2 people who were destroying lives and getting away with it. After Stephanie left, I sat alone in my office, thinking about everything that had happened since my wedding night. The humiliation, the anger, the elaborate revenge plot, the satisfaction of watching Miranda and Rico's world crumble. Had it been worth it? My phone buzzed with a text from Leo. Drinks tonight? I'm buying. Another text from Jenny. The Peterson contract came through, biggest deal in company history. And finally, a text from my mother. Saw the news about Rico's arrest. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I looked out the window at the city below, at all the people going about their lives, unaware of the small war that had been fought in boardrooms and ballrooms and parking garages. Miranda had been right about one thing. I had enjoyed the revenge. I had enjoyed watching her perfect facade crumble, enjoyed seeing her face when she realized she'd underestimated me, enjoyed the moment when her own words condemned her. But more than that, I had enjoyed discovering who I really was when someone tried to destroy me. I wasn't the boring software nerd she thought she could manipulate and discard. I wasn't the pushover Rico thought would just take whatever they dished out. I wasn't the victim they had planned to leave broken and humiliated. I was someone who fought back. 3 hours later, I was sitting in a downtown bar with Leo, Jenny, and Patricia, celebrating the Peterson contract and the news of Rico's arrest. So what now? Leo asked. You've defeated your enemies, saved your company, and become a minor internet celebrity. What does the conquering hero do for an encore? I was thinking about taking a vacation, I said. Maybe somewhere tropical, somewhere with good beaches and no cell phone service. Sounds boring, Jenny said. You sure you don't want to start another war with someone? I'm sure. One revenge plot is enough for a lifetime. Patricia raised her glass. To Nate Ford, who proved that sometimes the nice guy doesn't finish last. To Nate Ford, the others echoed. As we drank, I thought about Miranda, wherever she was. I wondered if she ever thought about that night in the hotel ballroom when she thought she was so clever, so in control, so sure that she could humiliate me and walk away unscathed. I wondered if she understood now that actions have consequences, that lies eventually catch up with you, that underestimating people is a dangerous game. Probably not. People like Miranda never really learn. They just find new victims and new schemes and new ways to justify their behavior. But that wasn't my problem anymore. My phone buzzed with a notification, another friend request from a stranger, probably someone who had seen one of the viral videos. I declined it and put the phone away. The war was over. I had won. And tomorrow, I was going to start planning that vacation. 2 years later, I was getting married again. Sarah Mitchell was nothing like Miranda. She was a pediatric nurse, kind and genuine, with laugh lines around her eyes and a smile that reached all the way to her soul. We met at a coffee shop near the hospital where she worked, and our first date lasted 6 hours, because neither of us wanted it to end. The wedding was small and private, held in my mother's backyard with just family and close friends. No fancy hotel, no elaborate reception, no social media circus, just two people who loved each other, promising to build a life together. Leo was my best man, of course. Jenny was Sarah's maid of honor, having become one of her closest friends over the past year. Patricia was there too, along with my mother, Sarah's parents, and a handful of other people who actually mattered. As Sarah and I danced our first dance as husband and wife, I caught sight of someone watching from across the yard. A woman in a dark coat, standing just outside the fence. For a moment, I thought it might be Miranda, but as the figure turned and walked away, I realized it was just a neighbor out for an evening walk. Miranda was gone. Really, truly gone. The last I'd heard, she was working at a small marketing firm in Denver, using her middle name and keeping a low profile. Rico was serving 18 months in minimum security prison and would probably be out in 12 with good behavior. Their story was over. Mine was just beginning. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked, following my gaze to the empty street. "Nothing important," I said, spinning her around to the music. "Just ghosts." She smiled and pulled me closer. "Well, tell your ghosts they're not invited to our party." I laughed and kissed her, right there in front of everyone, not caring who saw or what they thought. Because this was real, this was honest, this was what love actually looked like. As the song ended and our guests applauded, I looked around at the faces of people who truly cared about us, people who had celebrated our engagement, supported our relationship, and shown up to witness our commitment to each other. No one was going to ruin this moment. No one was going to turn this celebration into a performance or a publicity stunt or a weapon. This was my wedding, my wife, my life, and this time, I was keeping it.